Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank TEDxKAIST for organizing this event and allowing me to present my theory in public for the first time here. Okay, I'd like to start the evening with a very simple question, and that is, of course, this. Why is sex so damn good? If you laugh, you know what I mean. Now, an ex-girlfriend of mine once proposed maybe it's got something to do with the five senses. And when she said this, I had an epiphany. Before I explain that though, let's talk about something a little bit different. Do you all remember this? If you do, you're quite old. Okay? This is, of course, the VCR. Now, in the 1970s, when Philips RCA first introduced the VCR, they had a problem. And that problem was video rental shops just didn't exist back then. So they had a problem with marketing this machine to the general public. What they told the general public was you can use this machine to record television programs and watch them anytime you want. The problem was people back then were used to just watching a television program when it was on the television. So they didn't see the point of paying $2,000 for one of these. However, by the 80s and 90s, every house had a VCR. So what led to the first adoption of the VCR? And that is, of course, pornography. See, soon after the VCR was introduced, someone had the brilliant idea of distributing pornography on video cassette tapes. Let me explain why that was important. Now, before the VCR, this was how difficult it was to enjoy pornography. Take a look at this. You had to drive to the pornography theater. You had to park your car safely because usually these theaters were in a bad neighborhood. And then, number 3 says caution. You have to be careful because you could meet someone you know in the theater, like your boss or even your church pastor, right? And finally, after you've been through all these steps, you could enjoy pornography in public, though. Okay. Now, here's what the VCR did for pornography, right? You drive to the video rental shop. You rent the porno. You go back to your living room and you can watch it. Now, look at one less step compared to, of course, the theater, and of course, privacy, right? There's an even more modern technology that has made this even easier for us. Of course, it is the internet. 2 steps, download, watch. And of course, the risk of that getting caught, I'm sorry, it's been cut off, but it's very low. Okay? Let me talk about one other technology that is surprising in its adoption. Now, during the Industrial Revolution, when they first created the electric motors were massive things. They were industrial machines used in factories. However, today, when we think of the electric motor, we think of little motors that go in your cell phone or power cars, right? Toy cars. Why did they start building smaller electric motors? One of the reasons was, of course, the vibrator. That's right, those vibrators. There was a massive demand for vibrators in the early 1900s, and engineers literally started developing smaller electric motors. This is a vibrator from the 1940s. It's this big because that's about how small they could get the electric motor back then, right? Pretty big. The user straps it to her hand and then turns it on. There's an oscillating motor and her hand vibrates. Okay, so of course, you're going to ask me, why? Why am I doing this type of research? Well, this research shows me that the human sex drive and things connected to the human sex drive, like pornography and of course these vibrators, is a very strong motivator for us humans. It's such a strong motivator that it's actually motivated us to adopt some new technologies like the VCR and the internet. Okay. Now, let's get back to that 5 senses. So I have this epiphany. Maybe it is something about the 5 senses, and I wanted to test the theory. So I developed something called the 5 senses graph. Okay? Now the 5 senses graph is really simple. Along the y-axis, simple scale from 0 to 10. Along the x-axis, of course, the 5 senses. Anytime I had a memorable experience, I would record it on the 5 senses. We're going to try one together. Okay? Here's what I prepared. Now, what we're going to do is, we're going to do it for ramyeon, or instant noodles, because we've all tried this, right? Okay, let's try it. Okay, the first one, of course, is sight. The sight of instant noodles. Now, let me explain the scale for you. A 10 on sight would be like the first time you see your newborn child. Okay, good. All right, so think about how good noodles looks to you. Okay, so what do you think? the sight of instant noodles when you're eating?
About a 4.
4, excellent. All right, 4 is good. All right, the next one is touch. Of course, there is touch because you chew on noodles and then there's the broth, right? Miss over there. 7. Really like that. Okay, excellent. All right, smell. Don't forget, smell is 70% of the taste experience, right? Gentleman in the back with the glasses. How's the smell of noodles for you? 7. Whoa, very popular noodles for this round. All right, now there is sound with noodles, and as you guys know, it's the, yeah, you know it, right? Okay. Lady with the red jacket, how's the sound? 6. That's very generous here. Okay, finally, taste. I don't even need to explain taste, right? So, how's noodles taste to you? 2. There's always 1, right? Okay, all right, 2 it is. That's fine. And of course, here's the result, the noodles. And that's how the 5 senses graph works, okay? Now, for the past 3 years, I've kept a 5 senses diary. But not just me, I've asked some of my friends to do it, and also my university students I used to teach, and they would all do this for me as well. Okay, so here's my result, or the student's result for instant noodles. It's a little bit different. Okay? Now let's try the next one. Clubbing. I chose clubbing because, of course, I used to teach at university and they go clubbing a lot. Now, of course, with clubbing, I knew that sound would be a high factor. But what's really interesting for me on this graph is taste. Taste ranks 4. So I asked the students why. The students had that ranked taste high. They told me it's because of the alcohol consumed, and also because some of them kiss at clubs. Next one. Okay, smoking. I included smoking because smoking is actually a physically addictive activity. So I wanted to see how it ranked on the 5 senses graph. Now, what's very interesting to me about smoking is, of course, the touch. Now, when I asked smokers why, they told me the actual sensation of having a cigarette between your fingers and bringing it to your mouth is an extremely important part of the smoking experience. Which just goes to show just how well cigarettes are designed by the manufacturers, right? Okay, the next experience I'm going to show you is a rather personal experience. This is a Kawasaki Ninja, and as a much younger and stupider man, I used to ride one of these motorbikes. Right? So one night, I decided to max it out through a tunnel in Seoul. Right? So this is how the experience ranks on the 5 senses graph. Here you go. Okay, now as you can tell, it's pretty intense. I was doing over 200 kilometers per hour. And sight, touch, and sound ranks 10 for me. Sound, glorious. Oh, of course, it's echoed in the tunnel as well. Right? Now, there is smell. Of course, there is smell because of the accumulated exhaust gases in the tunnel, but also because at the end of the run, when I hit the brakes, you can smell the burning brake pads. For me, no taste, obviously. Now, a very intense experience. Let me ask you this. According to my 5 senses graph, what would the perfect experience look like on the graph? Right? The perfect experience, what does it look like? Gentleman with the red tie, what would the perfect experience look like on the graph?
Right, say all 10s.
Exactly. It would be a straight line along the top, all 10s. Now, in the 3 years I've been gathering this data, there's only one experience that has even come close to that. You guys already know what it is. Of course, great sex. Right? Great sex is the only constant experience that almost reaches that. One of my students in class summed it up the best. He said, sex is so good, it's good even when it's bad. Right? Okay, now, how does all this research relate to my field? I'm a designer. How does it relate? I'll explain. This is Chris Hosmer. I hate Chris. He's actually a great friend of mine from university, but you'll understand why I hate him. Okay. Now, back in my university days, student days, we had a quick 2-week project to design a solar-powered clock. And I thought it'd be rather boring to just design an alarm clock with solar panels on it. So here's my clock. Okay, my clock you buy as a kit, and inside the kit there's this bowl, and you get some seeds. And then you take the kit home, and with your family you experience the magic of growing a sunflower. Now the seeds are not normal sunflower seeds, they're the seeds for the dwarf sunflower, which is genetically engineered to grow this high. Once the sunflower is grown, you put it by the biggest window in your house. Now, of course, sunflowers track the sun, so in the morning, you just mark on that blank area where the sunflower is facing. You do the same for lunchtime, and you do the same for the evening. That's my clock. Now, it doesn't tell you the exact time, but I thought it was rather nice. Here's Chris's clock. All right. Now, Chris's clock consists of 5 magnifying glasses. Under each magnifying glass is a shot glass. Inside each shot glass is a different scented oil. Now, the way his clock works is, in the morning, the sun hits the first magnifying glass, the beam of light goes into the shot glass, warms up the scent of the oil, and that smell permeates through the house. A little bit later, the sun will hit the second magnifying glass, and a different smell will permeate through the house. So throughout the day, 5 different smells go through the house. The person living in the house after a few days will tell what time of day it is just by smell. Now, I thought my idea was pretty good, but this is genius. What you guys have to understand about me is I hate to lose. And the thing is, when this project was first presented, I knew his idea was better than mine, but I couldn't explain why. Now, this problem's been bugging me for over a decade. When I developed the 5 senses theory, I simply put both designs into the 5 senses graph. Here's how it works, right? Look at my clock. Yeah, it looks pretty good. There's a little bit of touch involved. Sorry, the 5 senses graph is a little different here, but I'm sure you'll understand, right? Look at Chris's clock. Looks all right. But his clock uses a whole new sense. One that we previously not used to tell the time in order to tell the time. That's what makes his idea genius. So, that's what I realized once I saw this graph. Most product design that I see follows my graph. Most designers design things to look really pretty. Sometimes they do a little bit of touch. But however, there's 3 senses being completely ignored by most designers. I think this is a shame. However, it is changing a little bit. And let me give you one example of a company that's doing something a little bit different. You remember this? Yeah. Okay. Now, back then, video games were very simple, weren't they? Right? What's A? Jump. What's B? Punch. Excellent. I get the game. Let's play. Right? Now, here's the problem. Take a look at the modern video game controller. Look at this thing. This thing has like 10 buttons. Nowadays, there's like 4 different types of punch and 6 different types of kick. And if you're as old and dumb as I am, this is too complicated. I do not play video games until, actually, 2007. And let me explain why. In 2007, Nintendo came out with a controller for people just like me, which is, let's face it, the majority of us. They came out with this. Take a look at this controller. It's so simple. And the best part is, you don't really even have to use the buttons while playing the game. With the Nintendo Wii, I don't know if you've played this, but if you want to hit a tennis ball, you just hit the tennis ball. If you want to backhand, you just backhand. Anyone can understand this. The success of the Nintendo Wii can also be explained by the 5 senses graph. And here you go. So you see, normal video game machines, yeah, the screen, the sight is very good. The sound is excellent. But the touch, there's hardly any touch. All you get is this when you press the buttons. Compare that to the Nintendo Wii. Actually, the graphics is not as good on the Nintendo Wii, but what makes it a brilliant machine is look at the touch scale. And actually, the profile underneath explains it even better, right? This is the profile of a traditional video game player while playing video games. Those are the profiles of Nintendo Wii players. Which one would you rather be doing? So, here's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that hopefully designers will start using the 5 senses graph. Anytime they design a product, put it into the 5 senses graph. See how your product experience rates. Now, if your product has the same graph as great sex, you will be richer than God. However, if your product simply affects some of the senses we don't usually associate, like smell, like touch, like taste, maybe that will help your product become very successful. Okay, before I go, one of the things is I realize most of you have probably never tried riding a motorbike, so I'm going to show a quick video clip of what that's like.
Hey, my name is Jinsop, and today I'm going to show you what riding motorbikes is like from the point of view of the 5 senses. Boy! This is Denmark, custom bike design. What's motorbike riding? Down with everything! This is all for you, brother!
Sorry, there's no sound because the onboard camera does not have a microphone. Okay, that's it. Thanks very much.